I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
You know, when you're with somebody that you're not all that comfortable with, it kind of like takes energy. But with each other, we don't take each other's energy in that way, and we can just spend hours together. She can be by my side, and it never tires me.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for listening. We're creating a radio program based on our podcast, as you may know, and we're looking for questions from listeners about relationships. So if you have a question or if you'd like some advice about your relationship, give us a call and leave us a message at 415-483-5112. We'll get right back to you, and hopefully we can include your message in our upcoming radio program. Once again, that number is 415-483-5112. In other news, we published part 2 of the Divorce Lawyer's Guide to Marriage on the magazine side of our website this week. You can check that out at our website, which is www.together.guide. And I'd love to hear what you think since I wrote it. And I want to give a big shout out to a few of our Patreon subscribers today. Alexi Kostibas, Amy Whittle, Tom Moore, Jason Vopava, and Juliana Bednarski. Thank you, guys. I don't know any of you, and if I'm being perfectly honest, I'm a little bit bowled over by your support. It means so much. As you know, we're on a mission to crush shame, and every penny really helps. So thank you. And if you would like to support us, you can find our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/together. And I'll put that link in our show notes. Now on to the interview. Today's episode is part 2 of an interview with my cousin Andrea and her husband Ryan. Part 1 was a very sweet story about how they fell in love, and you should definitely listen to that if you haven't already done so. Today's episode is about how to practice forgiveness in marriage. Andrea and Ryan have a really practical and insightful approach to letting go of anger in their relationship. And I must tell you that hearing them talk about it taught me a whole lot about the simple application of forgiveness as opposed to just the theory of it. And we also check in on the question of faith in this segment, and we explore how Andrea and Ryan's 2 quite different approaches to divinity have merged into one in their family. So with that, let's go to part 2 of our interview with Andrea and Ryan. You mentioned something at the break, which was that you call upon the moments that you described in the first half of the story when things get difficult. And Ryan, you said that romance is a really special time of life, but that it's not always like that. I think I changed your words. You said something a little more eloquent than that.
Yeah, you know, I think in our case, we're in that special time of life when we're young and single and doing a lot of growing and have a lot of freedom. And we have our stress too, and we have our work too, but it was just a really unique and free time of life. And, you know, you add relationship and love in the mix, and it's pretty awesome. And I think you get some emotional, you know, it's new and fresh, and I think you get emotional benefits that sometimes years later, you know, it's the emotional highs aren't there as much. So it's
The emotional highs aren't there. And what does it get? What do those get replaced with?
I would say just trust, you know, knowing that person is there, support and friendship. I can honestly say she's my best friend still. In fact, we went on a little trip together this weekend, and I forget the situation, but we were both coming out of the car, going to walk to a coffee shop. And she said she was tired or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, are you tired of riding with me?" And I said, like how, when you're with somebody that you're not all that comfortable with, and it kind of, even if you're not talking that much, or it kind of like takes energy,
For sure. Yes.
and you're just desiring to like get away and get alone again,
Yeah.
to like kind of rebuild your energy level. But with each other, it's like it's almost like being alone. I mean, we don't take each other's energy in that way, and we can just spend hours together. And at least from my perspective, I like to go alone, but I liked her to come with me, and I feel great. And I honestly don't feel that way with children as much. I need a break from children.
Yeah, of course you do.
I love my children, but sometimes the energy, I just like, okay, I need to get away and rebuild my energy. But with her, it's never like that. It's always like she can be by my side, and it never tires me.
And what Andrea?
And that was a joke, by the way, when he said, "Oh, you mean like when someone drains your energy?" He knew that would make me laugh.
Oh, because in what?
It was just like understood that he was joking, And I laughed, and we kept walking to the coffee shop because that's not how we are.
Oh, back to the point. Okay, yeah.
But
Thanks
we can
for connecting that.
But
me.
I can relate because that's a normal human feeling.
I'm a little bit introverted, so like I can be around people for a certain amount of time before I just like I want to pull myself away and
go get on a tractor, right?
Yeah.
Totally. So, all right. So, Andrea, what is conflict? What were you going to say? You're pointing at me.
Oh, well, I was just going to mention that after that meeting, that time that we went up to the cottage together, Ryan had already been planning on going out west with no time frame and no destination.
Oh, just to drive around or something?
To go exploring, camping, discover nature. There's a lot of great parks out there. And so we had this, I especially had this like, wow, that I want to be with this person. And this, I want to be in this relationship with Ryan. And he is leaving. He's leaving Michigan.
Tell me you went with him.
I did not go with him. I had 4 years of teaching. I had 4 years of going to school to be a teacher. And I had 1 year left, which would be where you do your practicals. You go to the school and you're actually teaching in a school under guidance. And I was doing graduate level classes at that point. So that was coming up for me. And it was spring, and he was planning this awesome trip. And I was really happy for him. And I did not want him to not to go, but it was just a unique situation I found myself in.
But you guys have always played the long game.
Yes. So I supported this wholeheartedly, and I wanted him to have a grand adventure. And when he was gone, he wrote letters. And I really felt like, and I told him this as well, I wanted him to go with open mind about where he might live, what he might do for the rest of his life, and that I did not want him to feel in any way, shape, or form tethered to me. And I wanted what was best for him, for his life, even if it meant another girl, even if it meant another relationship. Because if I wasn't the best person for him, then I'd rather have what was best for him. And so that was a unique time.
So was that a year apart then?
No, it wasn't that long.
but we didn't know at the time how long it was going to be. And I really wanted you to be free to just, we didn't know what was going to happen.
Well, then you came back after, well, how long was it?
It was like 4 months.
That's pretty good. All right, so you went for
So why did you come back?
Yeah, so I just made my way out west, all the way to the coast, and doing a lot of backpacking, going to national forests and some parks that would allow dogs, because I grabbed a dog out of the Humane Society before I left.
Great. That's awesome.
To bring with me. But yeah, I visited some schools when I was out there. I was kind of thinking, what do I want to do? And did a lot of backpacking and met some people. But this is before cell phones. I'd maybe once a week call around a payphone and but write letters. But I basically she was my reason why I'd come back to Michigan. I felt like I could live anywhere at that point, but she was in Michigan, so I made my way back before it got too cold.
Smart.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And so I always like to tell people 1 year and 8 months later from that time on spring break, we were married.
So he came back, and then 1 year and 4 months later from the moment he got back, you got married?
Well, about 1 year from the time he got
About a
back.
year?
Yeah.
Wow. So did you get down on your knee and do the whole engagement question? And
No, so when I was really seriously considering asking her to marry me, I decided to go on a backpacking trip by myself.
another one.
Yeah. This one was in Michigan.
Shorter one.
And I went out with my dog, and it didn't take me long on that trip to be confronted with the reality. Like, no, I do want to do this. I do want to marry her and be with her for the rest of my life. And I came back out, and on the way back to, we were living at the Bay Area Adventure School outside of Traverse City. It was an outdoor experiential education facility, camp. And I swung through Traverse City, and I went to the finest shoe store downtown and bought a pair of nice leather sandals, thinking this would be a creative and
It's so great.
unique.
It's so good.
And I came home, and I invited her to walk out to my very first garden. That summer I had the very first garden of my life, which is pretty unique considering that's what I do for a living now. But at that point, we didn't know what I was going to do for a living.
Yeah.
So I invited her to the very first garden, and I placed those sandals in her hand and invited her on a journey with me. That was it.
That was his
No
marriage
mas.
proposal.
Yeah.
That's so good. I didn't connect the dots at the
Nah, I
things
know.
for you until
She did.
You said more than that. You basically, it was like he actually said wedding vows in the garden. He didn't tell you I had to take my shoes off to walk on the sacred ground of the garden. And that he asked me to marry him before he gave me sandals. He said that he wanted to be the kind of man that was worthy of being my husband, and that he wanted to be an excellent father. And he had me close my eyes and put my hand out. So I thought he said, put your hand out.
you were expecting a ring.
Right. So I had
Palm
my
down.
eyes closed, and I put my hand out, and he said, no, put both your hands.
Yeah,
and
palm
turned,
down. You're
so I turned them over to receive something, and he placed sandals in the palm of my hands
What
and
did you
asked me to
think?
walk through life's journey with him.
What? Okay, really, what did you
Our
think?
memory's been.
So, so we were really immaterial. Like it was a strong ethic for me at the time, and it was a strong ethic for him. So I actually was not disappointed. Like another woman might have been shocked that it wasn't a diamond ring or
Right.
whatever, but I thought it was fabulous, really creative. We were so frugal that I would never have bought those sandals for myself.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, those were like $80 sandals.
Wow.
You know, you just don't go out and buy brand new $80 sandals
Yeah.
when you're, poor. And I would say at that time I had my teaching degree, and I decided to be a teacher at this adventure school. But it wasn't a high paying job.
Yeah, of course not.
And so anyway, I just thought it was really creative and beautiful and romantic. And, he's never written officially poetry, but I felt like every letter he sent me was poetry. So this just fit right into his personality.
Man, it is a great fit. Well, all right. So what did you mean when you said that after a year, I don't remember how long you said it was, that the honeymoon phase waned a bit?
So, before he proposed to me, I would say, so we met each other in spring break. We loved each other. I let him go. He came back. He came back to Michigan really because of our relationship. We would go visit each other and go back and forth. And there was this time where I think you were struggling with knowing that our relationship was headed towards marriage and not 100% feeling comfortable with it. And so maybe for Ryan especially, he was struggling with the finality of choosing one person for life.
Yeah. That's that's such a common thing for people to experience, possibly more men than women, I don't know. But it's interesting that you experienced it even though she was the woman that you'd always wanted to be with. And
Yeah, I think it's very human, and I think it. I'm a male, so I don't know from the female perspective, but I don't think it's uncommon. I mean that's a scary thing, and I did have a time of struggling with that, and I had a really good and trusting male friend that was older than me that kind of helped me weave my way through the mental and emotional challenges that I was facing at that time, and helped me sift through some stuff that was maybe not the truth. And I felt like I came out of that like, marriage, there's a lot of compromise in marriage, and but there's so much to gain too. There's a lot to gain, but it's scary. It's scary to make a commitment like that. And for me at that time in my life and where I'm at still, it's like I'm just tired of people playing games. I don't want to play games. And I'm not going to say I'm going to be with you the rest of my life if I don't mean it. So when I thought about it, it was just like, this is the real deal. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. There ain't no getting out of it, Yeah. So it was pretty intense, but with the help of my friend and a lot of searching, I felt like it was what I really did want in my heart.
well, let's skip forward to today.
Okay.
Or this general era.
Okay, so it's our 20th anniversary this year.
Really?
Yes.
You guys, you just laid all the right groundwork. 20 years together, and you're so young.
That was pre-marriage. I mean, the whole conversation we've had so far is before we got married.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about that. Frankly, we probably won't have time. Like, how did you decide to buy a farm and turn that into your business, and then having kids? I want to ask about one specific thing and see where that goes, which is you get along so well. You clearly still do. You two have a very settled ease with each other. It's engaged. It's endear. It's what's the word that I'm looking for? Well, it makes everyone around you feel comfortable. You know, people want to spend time with you because you're so settled with each other and happy. But you're humans, and so you have conflict. You must. What does it look like? How does it manifest? What do you do?
It's typically the root of it is stress. You know, running our own family business and it being a farm with lots of risk involved and changes, and there's just a lot going on in our lives. We're both full-time employed year-round on the farm, and if I were to say, I mean, our time together when we kind of step away from stress, we're kind of right back there where we're having fun and we want to be together. But when we're under a lot of stress, you know, that's when things get hard. And you know, I know for myself, you know, when we first would start having some challenges, we'd call it, I'd go into my cave, you know, and I'm kind of cold and don't communicate as well. And I can still do that, just where I just kind of withdraw a little bit and withdraw my affection.
And I imagine there's a real distinction, a real difference between when he withdraws into his cave because he's upset and he's shutting you out versus when he's just needs time alone to regenerate and he's off working, right? Can you feel a real qualitative difference?
Yes, definitely.
And what do you do when it's the harder kind where he's trying to shut you out?
Well, I mean, I feel like the time of coping with it shortens a little bit as you get deeper into your relationship. So maybe when we first got married, I was really thrown.
Yeah.
I mean, very hurt and upset and sad and not understanding at all. And maybe we wouldn't even be able to get through it for like a week and a half or 2 weeks. But now, unless it's an unusually stressful time, I feel like it doesn't last very long. It's like a couple days. And at the end of that, we're like, why did we do that? Why did we go through that? That was unnecessary hardship.
So, well, that's interesting. So aside from it being hard that he's withdrawn, is there something that you do?
Well, see, this is the thing. Like you just said, there's a difference. There's a qualitative difference between when he needs to be alone and he goes and takes a walk or he goes on the tractor. I don't take that personally at all.
Yeah.
But when I feel underlying sense of he's angry specifically with me,
Sure.
then, I mean, I don't want to psychoanalyze it too much, but then I just get, like, my foundation gets rocked.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard for me to feel comfortable in my own skin. All of a sudden, I really don't feel at ease with Ryan.
Yeah.
I can't, at those moments in time, it's hard to be together because I feel like he's not himself. He's really not the person that he is 85 to 95% of the time. And I just feel like, does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense. Or are you asking him? It totally makes sense to me.
I'm going to tell it from my perspective. From my perspective, I sometimes feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I can't do anything right. Or I might be trying not to do anything wrong, but then I do something that's upsetting. And when I look at it from his point of view, he's stressed for other reasons that have nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But it's irrational. But he wants me to be the calm in the storm. And then I'll inadvertently do something that drives him crazy. Like, I am known to lose keys.
Yeah.
And he's on his way out, and he has to have the car, and he can't find them. And then he's, at that time, of course, like, there's no filter. A lot of guys don't have filters. So it's just like, really? Can you, like, seriously, you have to work on yourself. You can't do this to me.
Yeah.
Instead of, and there's no name calling or swearing, but it's just anger.
Yeah.
Directed at me.
Yeah, he blasted at you, yeah.
And when he's not stressed, he might say, "This isn't funny," and it's a totally different feeling, But when he is stressed, I feel that anger towards me.
Yeah.
And I probably revert back to, feeling criticized and picked on, and back to that middle school kid
Yeah.
who felt sick walking down the hallway, not being accepted for who I am.
Yeah. It's amazing how quick it goes back to that.
Yeah.
Isn't it just amazing?
Yeah, so that I don't feel like I'm in the safe place, and then I'm nervous. Like, again, like I said, I just get kind of hyper sensitive to my own self making mistakes. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure. This is the dynamic.
So we all carry stuff from our childhoods. I was picked on. And probably criticism is the way that I get wounded the most.
Yeah.
And, so that's why I get so upset when this kind of stuff happens.
Well, what do you do? Do you try to, do you let, there's one specific, let me be even more specific with the question, because I'm really curious if you let him go off and do his thing and take his time, or if there's something you're trying to do to fix it.
No, I think if I'm having a good day,
Yeah.
I handle it really well
Yeah.
with humor, and I will help him lighten up.
Right, because your humor, your awareness of what's going on and of yourself allows him to have
Right,
awareness.
like I will purposely, if I'm having a good day, I can make him laugh almost, and he'll catch himself and laugh with me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily make it better. I'm trying to think of a specific
Well,
example.
what about when you're having a bad day?
Like, okay, I can't find the keys. You're pissing me off. Everything's going wrong. And then I will be like, yeah, but there's Ben and Jerry's in the freezer.
That's good, right? Totally
and,
lighten the mood.
just
topic.
like change the topic, like, but you're cool. Or I'm like, yeah, but you're looking sexy, or just something. And I can't do it every time. I wish I could.
Yeah.
I cannot manufacture that. It has to come from deep within me.
Yeah.
So if I'm not in a great space, then I'm quieter. I retreat.
You retreat.
I try to leave.
Yeah.
I'll have a comeback that makes it worse, a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we might spar, and it's just not good. So.
There's every couple in the universe has that interaction. I don't care what they say. They're having that kind of interaction on some level, and maybe they're burying it, but it's happening, right? Mm-hmm. And for some couples, those interactions build on one another. And then a week later, and then a month later, that's the only interaction that's happening, or it feels like the predominant interaction. And both people are walking on eggshells. And one person is saying, you make me walk on eggshells. And the other one's saying, no, you make me walk on eggshells. And I never know when you're going to be upset with me. And right, it goes back and forth like that. And that's really a hard spiral to get out of.
Mm-hmm. We don't let it go that long.
What do you do you do this kind of thing that you're talking about
so
to pull it back?
Obviously, I don't even think we'd be together if we didn't practice forgiveness. And there's another thing. I refuse to keep a laundry list of wrongdoings.
High five.
I think it's hard for me.
High five to that. That is.
I think it's hard for me to remember a specific incident because I purposely practice letting it go. And I don't have a laundry list of incidences, and I don't want to dwell on it. I don't want to dwell on the past. I really want to focus on all the things about Ryan that I love, and I want to focus on all the times he's come through for me and our family and our kids. So when we are going through a hard time, I don't have to think 20 years ago. I can think yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, like he's freaking working till sundown, and then he's doing chores for our family. That's a man. He's a man. He deserves respect and unconditional positive regard. He doesn't deserve me nitpicking every little detail of the ways that he has done wrong or pissed me off or not read my mind. So I think the bottom line for me is practicing grace and forgiveness over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I've already told you I'm a spiritual person. I'm a Christian. And I don't want to be a Christian in name only. And it's like Christianity 101. Love your neighbor as yourself is like the second most important commandment of the world. And I don't want him to hold a laundry list of all my wrongdoings.
Yeah.
And I don't want him to not forgive me or not extend grace to me. So why would I do that to him?
Yeah. And Ryan, when you're withdrawing like that, is it usually her who brings levity to the situation, or is it kind of even who breaks out of it? What?
I think Andrea's, as far as the relationship goes, I think she's pretty easy to live with. And she's very forgiving. You know, what she's saying is very true. Like, I can be a real asshole sometimes, and, you know, a day later we're back on, you know, good graces and having a great time and fun, and we move on.
But we both know how to say I'm sorry. And
Yeah.
we both know how to say I forgive you and let it go. It's not just me. I mean, you've had to forgive me
Right.
many times.
Right. Like, yeah. Yeah. So just forgiveness is huge. I mean, without forgiveness, relationships are not going to work. Plain and simple. It's not going to work because you're going to hold on to any kind of hurt, and people are going to hurt people because that's what people do. They hurt each other, and it's just a matter of time.
Do you think that with that kind of maturity any relationship can work?
I think, you know, if both parties truly respect each other. Now, I believe there's more competitive relationships and more incompatible relationships, but two humans who truly respect each other and love each other, they can do great things. But you got to pull some of that human part out, you know, the ego, the selfishness. We're naturally selfish.
We are. And our ego is big.
And it's really hard. And it takes quite a person to live a life like that.
Yeah.
Well, and I always like to say, sometimes I'll say it in my defense to Ryan, or I'll say it to myself when he's not meeting my expectations. It's not my job to make Ryan happy. And it's not Ryan's job to make me happy. We're in charge of our own peace, our own inner peace, and our own sense of joy. And that to me comes from more than a relationship. We both feel, and we've had this conversation before, if one of us were to pass away, we would not wither and die. We would go on, we would be upset and sad for a while, we would grieve, but we could both go on to have a rich and fulfilling life.
Yeah.
He is not my sun and my moon. He is not my God. You know, I have a God.
Yeah.
And it's not Ryan. He's my best friend. He's my soulmate, I could say. He's my lover. But I'm not placing all of my strengths and hopes and dreams in a person. And I know he doesn't do that to me either. Once in a while, like I said, when we're stressed out, I think I momentarily become more important than I should be.
Well, don't we all? And you were paraphrasing the way he, something that he would say, and I don't know if it's fair because she was putting words in your mouth, Ryan.
Yes, it wasn't fair. Sorry.
But it is a thing that we do when we're in a fight where we say, how could you do this to me?
Yeah.
You know? But you're not, but what you're saying is that that's not how you live. That's what happens when you're triggered.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the difference when you're triggered? The reason I'm asking specifically this is I was just writing a story about it today.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm going to be releasing on the magazine pretty soon. About where your responsibility for your own experience lies.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you that lies in ourselves. On the other hand, we get triggered by people outside of us in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, where does that difference lie in responsibility? They trigger you. Somebody does a thing that crosses a boundary or that you consider inappropriate or that just reminds you of something from childhood. And then you have an emotional reaction. Where does the responsibility lie in that dynamic and always?
I'm not sure if I fully understand your question, but the emotional response that I may have that's negative is my own error, and I eventually I got to take responsibility for that. Yes, some behaviors that she does, like the key thing. There are things that I'm just like, come on, can't we like move on from this and like learn like the lesson of just put the keys back
After 40 years.
Okay, so this is a lot of things. I mean, I'm disorganized.
Right. Yeah, it's not
just keys. I don't want your audience to think that this is all about keys. It's like papers or tickets. We're about to go to a concert and I misplaced them, or I didn't fill the gas tank and we have to go somewhere. I mean, it some of it's justified, really serious things.
But for me to get emotional about it or negative, it's up to me to control my own self, right?
Yeah.
And I think the way, and I almost don't feel real comfortable saying this, but my parents were very emotional when I was a kid. And that's what I grew up with, seeing like, you this or you that. So that was like ingrained in me, and I kind of realized, like when that started, when we were married. Now I'm in a marriage relationship that was, like another marriage relationship I knew, and these same kind of stuff started coming up. I remember I really struggled with that and just said, I need to work on myself. And I think that work isn't complete. I think I've come a long way. But it's just something that it's my own error. But when I'm honest with myself, I can reflect on that. I can say, yes, I'm incorrect, and I need to either apologize or change behavior, and try to do a better job. But,
So we're good at talking things through, I think.
Sounds like it.
To answer your question, we don't let it go for 2 weeks because neither of us could last that long without talking about it. And we practice talking to each other. I don't know if it's practice anymore. I think it's pretty natural, but we don't yell. We don't call names. We talk from the perspective of, I feel upset when this happens, instead of you did this, you're doing this, you made me miserable.
It's a good choice of words.
I don't know where I picked that up. It could have been just like a lot of young wives. We read a lot of marriage books.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher. I like that kind of stuff. So I learn a lot from reading. So, but And I think that in a way I might have influenced him. So
Yeah.
over time, if he really hurt my feelings, I wait till I calm down. And then I'm like, when we're in a good, like maybe we're physical with each other and we're cuddling or whatever. And I'm just like, hey, Tuesday when this incident happened, because I know he's going to be receptive at that time.
Yeah.
And
when
he's really going
calmed
to
down.
hear me.
And he knows something
Not in
happened.
the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
That's not going to be a good lesson time. I mean, I'm not going to be able to necessarily pass on any information that will be heard.
Yeah.
But later on, when we're reuniting, which is a big part of marriage, I think, is that physical relationship really helps ease tensions and just bring us back together so we can talk things through.
Okay, we're pretty much out of time, but let me ask one last topic, and maybe there's something interesting there. Maybe we'll just cut it out, but we'll keep it quick. Okay, so guys, let's change topics real quick. I'm curious about a faith. Something you said at the beginning was that you have a different approach to faith and spirituality, and I'm curious how that came together. So, Andrea, you've already said you're a Christian, and that's a strong part of your life. And it sounds like, at least in the early days, you weren't. Ryan, is that?
No, I wasn't Christian. I went to church sporadically as a kid, but I never really identified with it very much, and wasn't really much of a part of the church or the teachings. But as I started doing some personal growth and kind of decided, like I said earlier, I decided to kind of face some of the stuff I wanted to deal with and move forward in my life. And I turned towards like a spiritual seeking, and I felt a spiritual response. It was outside of the church. It was just between me and Creator, and it was definitely kind of more of a naturalist, I guess, if you're going to put a label on it, just because spending a lot of time in nature, and to me it's obvious something big is going on when you're outside and you see the stars, and you can't explain it, and it wasn't made by man. And that was kind of the foundation, was just one-on-one seeking and finding, without anybody or any books around.
And how did that gel with a more doctrinal approach?
Well, I think we had that in common. I mean, I had the same exact feeling in nature.
Yeah.
I just also had a fabulous community within the church. And so at that, especially when we first met, it was easy for us to talk all the time. And I never felt like I had to prove myself right and him wrong.
Right.
But we'd have a lot of good, lively conversations about the role of the church and what's wrong with the church, what's good with the church, how the church, is vital to communities, and also just more of who Jesus is, what he stood for. I mean, honestly, he's like a radical hippie, right? I mean, he's
in so many ways.
I mean,
A Buddhist.
So a lot of institutional churches have, in a lot of ways, watered that message down. So I was just trying to introduce Ryan to the real Christ. The real Christ is not doing altar calls with music softly playing in the background. The real Christ was a radical in your like soul to soul connection. Just really, I don't know. That's who I know, I guess. And I was just trying to share that with him.
Yeah.
And our faith kind of grew together as I identified the Creator, who I've come to know as the same God of the Scriptures, and the spiritual, feeling I would get physically when seeking, I identify now as the Holy Spirit. And so it's all one and the same. We put labels on stuff and we try to understand it mentally and put it in framework and boxes, but it's all just mystery, and there's so much going on. No matter what you call it, it can happen, and God can work in people's lives in a beautiful way.
Yeah, framework doesn't matter. Amen. Well, guys, thanks so much for being on the show. It's been such a pleasure. Now, I like to end games. I'd like to end games with a quick. Well, this was a great game. I like to end shows with a quick game of this or that.
Okay.
You probably are familiar with this or that because you have lots of little rugrats running around this house.
I don't know the game.
All right. It goes like this. I'm going to tell you a this or that. You're going to tell me which one you prefer. So we'll start with a little kid one that I learned the other day. Would you rather fall into a pit of hot lava or get eaten by sharks? Ryan.
Hot lava.
Hot lava.
Really? Why?
Because it's over faster.
That's probably right. Okay. And then here's one that was submitted by a good friend and a listener just yesterday via text message. She asks, wisdom or intelligence?
Wisdom.
Wisdom.
I knew you guys were going to say sure. That. That's a foregone conclusion, right? And Ryan, why?
Just move so much further along. Intelligence can actually confuse us.
so right. Okay. All right. Okay. And then now we'll move on to my classic questions. Batman or Superman, Ryan?
Batman.
Superman.
Oh, usually. All right. So why and why?
I want to fly.
Oh, well. Okay.
For sure.
Batman looks cooler.
He really does, doesn't he? Yeah. Okay. All right. Second to last question. If you had to, this is how I word it. Enlightenment or $1 billion, Andrea?
Enlightenment.
Enlightenment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally. Okay. And then last question. If you had to either live forever, like in infinity, or die in the next 5 minutes, which would it be?
Live for infinity. Oh, you mean in this life?
Well, the genie comes up and says that to you, but you can't ask qualifying questions, so you just got to go for it.
I'd die.
You'd die.
I would say infinity, but of course I'm thinking I already get to live for infinity.
Well, that's it for our interview with Andrea and Ryan, folks. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard on our show today, please subscribe to us on iTunes. It makes a big difference. Please also consider donating to our Patreon campaign. We're on a mission to crush shame, and every penny really helps. You can find our campaign at patreon.com/together. That's patreon.com/together. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out to us via one of our platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both at together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director and my one and only is Aubrey Pick. Thanks once again to my guests, Andrea and Ryan. Guys, wasn't that rain gorgeous? I keep thinking about it. But that's all for today, folks. See you next time.